Okay, let's get started. So brioche row 1 begins with a knit 4 stitches. So we'll knit 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we will begin to work our brioche setup row. So you'll bring your yarn to the front to work a slip 1 yarn over. You'll slip the next stitch, and then you'll knit the stitch after that. Bring yarn to the front, slip purlwise, knit the following stitch. Yarn to the front, slip 1, knit 1, yarn to the front, slip 1, and knit 1. I'm going to speed this up a bit as I work across the first half of the shawl, and I'll slow this video back down when we work that center stitch. Okay, we're coming up to that center stitch. We're working our very last knit 1. And you can see the center slip stitch is ready to be slipped. So with the yarn in back, we're going to slip that stitch purlwise. That's how we get that nice spine. Slip that stitch, and we're going to knit the next stitch. Bring yarn to the front, slip, then knit the next stitch, yarn to the front, slip, knit the next stitch, and we will continue just as before all the way until our last 4 stitches. So the last 4 stitches will be a knit 1 and a slip 3 with yarn in front. Let's begin brioche row 2. We'll start by knitting the first 3 stitches, 1, 2, 2, and 3, and then we'll work a slip 1 yarn over. So yarn to the front, slip a single stitch purlwise, and then we will brioche knit the next stitch. So that's a single stitch with a loop over it. Yarn to the front, slip 1 yarn over, so that's a single stitch, and then we brioche knit the next stitch. Yarn to the front, slip a single stitch purlwise, brioche knit the next stitch together with its yarn over. Slip, brioche knit, yarn to the front, slip a single, knit brioche, yarn to the front, slip, brioche knit. So I'll speed up this video until we get to the center stitch. Okay, so we are getting close to that center stitch. Go to brioche knit, slip 1 yarn over, and now we'll take a look at the front and we'll see that we've come up to that center stitch. So we have slipped a stitch, our yarn is in the front, we're going to wrap it around back to the front, purl that single center stitch, and then our yarn is in the front, slip, and then brioche knit. Yarn to the front, slip, brioche knit, yarn to the front, slip, brioche knit. And we will continue this way across row 2 to end with slip 3 with yarn in front. Let's work brioche row 3. We're going to knit 3, and then the very next stitch will be a brioche knit. So we will knit the last stitch with its yarn over together, bring your yarn to the front, slip 1, brioche knit. Yarn to the front, slip 1, brioche knit. And we will continue this way across to the center stitch. I will speed up the video again, and I will see you when we get to the center stitch. Alright, so we've worked up to that center stitch. We are going to slip it with yarn and back, and then brioche knit the following stitch, and then we'll resume our brioche knit right across. So we will have our yarn in the front, slip the next stitch, brioche knit, yarn to the front, slip, brioche knit, and we'll continue that way across the rest of row 3 up until the last 5 stitches. Alright, so we've come to the last 5 stitches. We're going to slip one yarn over, and then we're going to bark yarn over bark into the next stitch. So we're going to increase by brioche knitting, but keeping that stitch on the needle. We're going to bring our yarn to the front, and then we're going to brioche knit into that stitch one more time. Wrap your yarn around, and then take the stitch off. You've increased by 2 stitches with a bark yarn over bark. Then we'll bring our yarn back to the front, slip the last 3 stitches with yarn in the front. Now we're ready to work row 4. So we'll knit the first 3 stitches as in every row, so 2 and 3, and then we'll bring our yarn forward, slip 1, and then we'll brioche knit a single stitch. Yarn forward, slip 1, and then brioche knit a regular brioche stitch, and then continue as established. We'll continue working across row 4 just as we did in row 2. I'll finish up this row and I will see you in row 5. Alright, for row 5, we are going to begin with our knit 3, and then we are going to knit front and back into this brioche knit stitch. So we're going to just work a knit front and back as you would on a regular knit stitch. So knit to the front and then knit into the back, adding 1 additional stitch. And then you will bring yarn to the front, slip 1, brioche knit, and you'll continue to work across the row as you did in row 3, all the way to the other end. I wanted to show you that as we work back across row 6, we're going to come back to that knit front and back that we worked at the beginning of row 5. And I just wanted to show you how that will be worked. So I'm continuing across row 6 with my slip 1 yarn over brioche knits up until I reach the end of the row. Okay, and then after that I will have 5 stitches left. So I've just worked a brioche knit. I need to yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip the last 3 stitches. Okay. All right, we are going to work across row 9 of the brioche section. So as always, we will start with our knit 3 at the beginning of the row. So this row is going to have increases and decreases that are patterned all the way across the brioche section, but we'll work through them together. So we're going to yarn forward, slip 1 yarn over, brioche knit. That's just a standard brioche knit stitch. Then we're going to yarn forward, slip 1, and we're going to bark yarn over bark into this stitch. So there we've increased. Now we're going to yarn forward, slip 1 yarn over, slip one, and we're going to do a brioche left leaning decrease. So we're going to slip this stitch knitwise over here. Our yarn is still in the front, and we're going to knit together this single stitch and this stitch. So I'm just kind of hold on and kind of tension this here so it stays together, but we're going to knit those stitches together. So you're kind of going across a lot of stitches there. So you're going to knit those together, and then you're going to pass the slip stitch back over and off your needle. And that is a left leaning decrease right there. Okay, so now yarn forward, slip one, yarn over, bark, yarn over, bark, yarn forward, slip one, brioche left leaning decrease. So slip one knitwise, and then knit together those next two stitches. And then pass the slip stitch over and off your right hand needle. Yarn to the front, slip one, bark, yarn over, bark, yarn forward, slip one, brioche left leaning decrease. So slip one, and then knit those two stitches together, and then pass your slip stitch back over and off, left leaning decrease. And then yarn forward, slip one, bark, yarn over, bark, yarn forward, slip one, brioche left leaning decrease. So slip one knitwise, kind of tension that right there, and knit your next three stitches together. Then pass the slip stitch over and off. There you go. And that brings us to our center stitch. You can kind of see traveling up here, and then it's this very next stitch on the needle. So we're going to slip that one with the yarn in the back, and then we are going to work a brioche right leaning decrease next over here. So we will slip one knitwise, we will knit the next stitch, pass the slip stitch over that one, pass that stitch over to the left hand needle, and then pass this next brioche stitch over and off of the left hand needle, and then pass this stitch back here. And that is kind of hard to see, but that's a right leaning decrease. And now we're just going to get our stitches moved up here. So we're going to do a yarn, our yarn is forward, we're going to do yarn forward, slip one, brioche, knit, yarn over, knit, that's an increase, yarn forward, slip one, now a right leaning decrease. So slip one knitwise, knit the next stitch, pass the slip stitch over, pass this to the left hand needle, and then pass the next knit stitch over and off, and then you can kind of snug everything back up here. Now back to yarn forward, slip one, bark, yarn over, bark, and now a decrease. So yarn forward, slip one, and now our right leaning decrease. So slip one knitwise, knit one, pass the slip stitch over, pass that to the left hand needle, pass the next stitch over, and then pass it back to the right hand needle. Now an increase, so slip one yarn forward, bark, yarn over, bark, yarn forward, slip one. Now it's time for a decrease, slip one, knit one, pass the slip stitch over, pass that to the left hand needle, and then pass the next stitch over that stitch. Slip one yarn over, bark, yarn over, bark, yarn forward, slip one, decrease, yarn forward, slip one, bark, yarn over, bark. Okay, I am going to finish up row 9 and I will catch back up with you at the beginning of row 10. Okay, now we are going to work row 10. We're going to work back across all of the increases and decreases that we just worked. I just want to show you what that's going to look like. If you haven't worked them before, it can be a little confusing and different looking than the original brioche stitches. So we're going to start with knit 3, yarn forward, slip 1. So we're going to brioche knit the next stitch, but it's going to be just a single stitch because this is where we increased on the last row. So brioche knit. So as we work across, when we come to an increase, it's going to look like we're brioche knitting into a single stitch. So yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit. Yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit. And we'll work across a couple of these together so that you can kind of get the rhythm of it. So yarn forward, this is an increase, so we'll brioche knit, yarn forward, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip 1. This is an increase, so we're just going to go into a single stitch, yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit. Yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit. Back to an increase, so yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit into a single stitch. Yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit. And you'll continue this way across, working into a single stitch when you are coming across an increase from the opposite side. But you're still just working the same stitches of yarn forward, slip 1, brioche knit. To work the first row after the brioche repeat, you will begin as every row with a knit 3, and then yarn over, and then we are going to work all of the following stitches as a single knit stitch. So your brioche purl is a single knit, your brioche knit is a single knit, so forth and so on. So let's begin.
And you'll just continue knitting like that until you get to 2 stitches before the center stitch. So the center stitch is here, so 2 stitches from that would be here and here. So we'll work one last single knit stitch, and then we will slip, slip, knit, slip the center stitch with yarn in back, and then knit 2 together, this brioche and this purl stitch. Okay, and then we will continue to knit across the row as we did on the first side of the shawl. So knitting every brioche stitch as a knit stitch and knitting every purl stitch as a knit stitch, all the way over to the last 3 stitches, and then we will work a yarn over, slip 3 with the yarn in the front.